Are they, did they get it?
Studio, we ready to go live?
There we go. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say that I've watched almost all of the council committee meetings. That was of value and helping us move where we're talking about where we want to go with our community. So this is our special meeting in this room today. We're going to start with our consent agenda, and we want to go over anything that we have following that. And I just lost my pen. So, thank you very much. All right, so our first item, any questions for, you have a document in front of you, I think with Ms. Mayfield asked several questions, but any additional questions, or Ms. Mayfield, do you want to review any of these that you submitted?
Madam Mayor, I'm pulling all these for separate vote.
Okay, we'll have these all for separate vote.
On to pull item 23.
23, got it. Okay, anyone else that would like to make any comments about the consent agenda moving forward? Any other items to be voted on separately? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 13 through 52 with the following exceptions: 33, 34, 35, 38, that have been deferred by staff and they will be coming back in February, and as well 44, 45, and 47 that have been settled by staff. So again, the motion, and then we would have a separate motion on 23, and then if you'll follow Ms. Mayfield's list that's before you, 14, 15, 17, 19, 25, 40, and 10.
10 is a business item, ma'am, so we'll
10 is a
cover
business
that in
item,
the
so
chamber.
that'll have a separate vote in of itself. All right,
Mayor,
so,
before we move for that vote, you said a number are settled. I didn't receive that update, so which ones were settled?
44, 45, 46, and 47.
So I'm going to add 48 to mine. List to pull.
Add 48, so, all right, so the motion is to state again, items 13 through 52, with the exceptions of 23, 23, 33, 34, 35, 38, 44, 45, 46, and 48. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor of the motion? If there is no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
I'm sorry, what's the motion?
Okay. All right, so that is a majority. All right. Anyone opposed? All right, let's go ahead and start with the very first ones. We'll go in the numerical order. The first one is item 14. Item 14 is tree pruning and arborist services. Ms. Mayfield, I'll recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maria, I sent the question for this as far as what is the breakdown of how many additional trees.
Yes, ma'am. And to your point, this is, you had also asked when it expires, I believe, or the time frame of the contract is through December 31st, 2025. And we've conducted a pilot, and based on the initial work from the pilot, we're expecting to do roughly 1,560, but it depends on the type of tree, the size of the project.
No.
So that's an estimate based on what we've done so far with the pilot.
So for clarification, this additional request for $1 million is
38 is not approved.
adding only 1 year and hopefully an additional 1,500 trees, but we don't know if it's going to be.
Correct, ma'am. It could be more or less.
So does that mean out of this request for $1 million, if it is less, then we should expect to see a refund at the end of this?
Well, so we pay them, let me look at this one right quick, but I believe this one's based on the work order. So if we don't use all the money, then we don't spend it. We don't pay them in advance.
So, thank you for that clarification. What I'm trying, this proposal that went out, council identified and approved a contract amount. But what we have in front of us is just the first of possibly many additional amendments, but just this first one for an additional $1 million. And we're saying for them to mitigate an additional 1,500 trees, but we don't have a definitive number for this amount.
Correct, because it's based on how much work they do, do they take the whole tree down, do they just prune some low hanging, or do they have to climb up it and top it, things like that. So we don't know until we actually call them in to work on trees.
Thank you for the clarification. Based on the last bullet on this item, that potential price adjustments may be considered based on legitimate and justified increases. I don't really see a justified increase in this additional $1 million for a 1-year extended term. I am going to be a no on this, but
Okay.
Move to
go
approve.
ahead.
We have a motion, and do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyone opposed? Ms. Mayfield, thank you. The next item that we have is item 23, if we go in the order of the agenda. I'm sorry, we'll go with 15, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning preventive maintenance and service repairs. Item 15. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This one, which is listed, but for those in attendance who do not have a copy of this, my question was for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, preventive maintenance, and repair services. What we have in front of us is that we received 3 proposals. We are expecting an expenditure to be estimated around $2 million. What we have in regards to Charlotte Business Inclusions, that contract goals were not established for these contracts. Well, for those who don't know, contract goals are for that sub, not for the actual prime. So my specific question was CBI partnered with for this project, and are there no minority businesses, owned businesses available for this RFP, not to be a sub to break it out, but to actually, since this is just preventive maintenance for HVAC, and there are a number of HVAC companies, including ones that we help fund through Goodwill, that possibly could have participated. What was stated for this project, that 12 CBI certified firms were identified who could potentially perform the needed services. They received a notice of the RFP encouraging participation for the solicitation. 2 CBI certified firms submitted their intent to bid, but did not submit a proposal. Note, this is a rebid because they didn't have enough bidders the first time. One of our challenges that we know within CBI, and the fact that we have created opportunities with bonding, is a disconnect. And that disconnect seemed like if this has already gone out for a rebid, that there would have been a different conversation to try to understand that if we identify 2 out of the 12 certified firms that were identified that could have potentially performed these needed services, why are they not applying? Because this, again, is an estimated $2 million contract. There's a reason why small business enterprises and minority-owned businesses are not applying for certain RFPs, so there's a disconnect there.
Do we have,
Move to approve.
I know, we have a motion. Do I have a second? We've had the discussion. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right. The next item is item 17, construction, administration, inspection, and management services. Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is also a question that I asked regarding specifically how are we utilizing CBI, and are we using CBI beyond just as a sub on a contract, and are we giving opportunities for primes to be created. Marie, thank you for getting the responses to all of my questions for me. So it was noted in here that one of our vendors, the Gavel and Dorn Engineering, is a CBI certified SPE firm, so I appreciate you identifying that, because for whatever reason, what I received online did not have any of the attachments that we normally have for me to look at any of the breakdown for the bids. All I have is the legislation text, so for this one, I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Motion, anyone opposed? All right. The next item that we have is 19, Airport Concourse A Expansion Phase 2 Change Order. All right.
So, Madam Mayor, the question that I sent to Marie for this Airport Concourse A expansion phase, this change order is already change order number 2 from a project that was originally approved on March 28th of 2022. That approval was for almost $173 million. That was in March. In August, on the 28th in 2023, we had approved the first amendment. That amendment was for $3,550,000, part of the joint venture. Now, what we have noted in here is that this CAP 2 was designed in a manner that could be expanded when the airlines required more baggage makeup space. Passenger numbers now require that the added capacity this project will provide. We just approved this in 2022. It was built with the intention of being able to expand. We've already had one amendment that was almost $3.6 million. Now they're in front of us again with another amendment, which is only amendment number 2 at $4.8 million, making the new value of this contract just under $200 million. This question is actually for the manager. Do we have, or are we anticipating a cap on these amendments for this total cost? Because if you're building out project management 101, which you know, I need to give you the strongest proposal. But if we go back and if we were to actually look at the other bids that came in and look at the scope that we presented to them, have we matched or exceeded one of those higher bids with the idea of going with the lowest responsive bidder?
So thank you, Councilmember Mayfield. I'll take the first shot at this, and Marie can help me out if I've missed it. In this case, we knew expansion would occur. It just occurred faster than we expected, and thus that's why you have the change orders. Not that it's something that's out of scope.
Correct, but this, and to Ms. Mayfield's point, it's not like this vendor's coming back and saying, oh, I need more money to do the same scope. This is something that was planned for a future date, so it's a different scope. It's to add another part of a facility so they could get one more baggage processing facility in there for the baggage. And so it wasn't part of the original scope. So the other vendors, to your point though, they would have had to bid more too, because it wasn't in that part of the
So I'm
original
going to ask a
contract.
little different question, Mr. Manager. If we built this with the intention of there being the capacity to add to this project, did we not have conversations of, if we were, I need you to build this big enough so that when we grow, it was never an expectation or a conversation that you very well may be the one that's going to continue this project. So just give me an idea of what that can look like.
Well, I
Or
see-
at least say, we get 3 amendments, and that's it.
Sure, I see Jack's chomping at the bit to come in to help explain where we are. I'd like to invite him up.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. My name is Jack Christine, Chief Infrastructure Officer for the airport. So, Ms. Mayfield, the way that this worked, we had a project that we initiated in the middle of COVID, or coming in out of COVID, to add 10 gates to the concourse. We had a demonstrated need for the gate capacity. We had always identified an area for additional square footage to allow for an additional baggage makeup unit when the need arose. We didn't want, last year, we've had an extreme amount of growth in our baggage system, 18% more bags last year than the year before, which is unprecedented for us. So we initiated this change at the request of the airlines to add an additional bag makeup unit to accommodate what we're seeing already without that being in place. We've done this in a way where we are bringing multiple amendments because we're trying to fast track the process of getting it built. So the first amendment you saw and approved a couple months ago was for the foundations and the steel structure. This amendment is for upfitting the actual part of the building, and then the next amendment will be for the actual baggage makeup equipment itself. And then that'll complete everything and we'll finish out the project.
So we do already know that there is going to be additional amendments. So moving forward, I think it would just be helpful when it's identified to provide that information ahead of time versus having these multiple amendments. If we know that additional work or capacity is going to be needed, and we already have an idea and have already reached out to say, send me the proposal of how much this additional work would cost, share that information ahead of time versus on the night of or over the weekend, we're going to be voting on this amendment versus like you just shared. We know that there's going to be an additional, so the Amendment 3 is coming because this is going to be the additional work. Because I'm still going to ask this question otherwise, that for almost $200 million project, it is actually going to be at or over $200 million by the time we get this third amendment in without having the full scope of everything because you're breaking it down little by little and saying, well, we'll just do an additional amendment versus saying, okay, we know what this build out is going to be and what the needs are. Even though it may have come earlier than we anticipated, we still knew that that was going to be a need, so it would have been helpful so that we're having a true conversation budget-wise when we're approving all of this. I wish that might not be a concern for some people, this $200 million.
All right. Do we have a motion on the concourse expansion? We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right. The next item is, stay up here, Jack, Delta Airport Consultants, or maybe Haley. It's item 25.
23,
It's
yes,
a
ma'am.
15-year lease agreement with Delta Airport Consultants for office space.
Correct. This breakdown for this office space, one, for those, again, who don't have access to this, Delta Airport Consultants are looking to lease property off of West Boulevard, 7,371 square foot office space for 15 years. That rent is $4,429.19 a month, which breaks down to less than $9 a square foot for this lease for 15 years, so it will generate some costs, but when we have, of which we all should have received an email earlier today from a small business owner, I'm trying to understand if we have consistency in our contracting, and why does it seem we have a different price range for a corporation than we do for small businesses and not in the positive for that small business? So what I reached out to ask Marie is, what is the price per square foot in their area, and how is that, and how is the price identified? So breaking this down at less than $9 a square foot for this area, you can't, no business small business owner that's looking for retail space, because we receive the emails and the phone calls daily, are able to find any rent for less than $9 a square foot in the city. Our square footage is $25 or more, depending on the area. So help me understand how this was negotiated and how this is to the benefit of the residents of the city when we have small businesses that do not have access to these type of contracting terms.
All right, we're going to have the aviation director to the podium.
Good evening, council, manager, and mayor. Councilmember Mayfield, I would remind you that this is in the Aviation Enterprise Fund. This is not part of the general fund. And I would also allow me to explain to you that this particular facility is matched with appraiser reviews for other real estate in the airport area. I would also tell you that this particular space is what I would call C space at best. It is not A-class space, and the company that is coming into that space will make improvements to the space to make it as they will utilize it. I heard you say retail. This is not retail space. This is, as I said, back of the house, C space at best, and it is comparable to other rental rates on the airport. I can assure you that every time we rent a space, it is in comparison to the other space that is in our market to ensure that we are consistent.
So you're saying that this space, so that, and I was just using that as an example, and I do understand. My challenge is access to office space for less than $9 a square foot. You're telling me that other businesses that may be doing business or sub-business with the airport, that they will have access to office space at this rent rate that this corporation has?
We don't typically rent office space that is off-site from the airport. This is warehouse, industrial space where they will use it for offices. They are making the improvements themselves, and this is the standard rental rate for the office space as it is, as they are taking it.
Okay, thank you. So the standard rental rate for office space within the airport is around $9 a square foot?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's consistent. So we will be able to see that in other spaces that we are renting for businesses, whether they are a franchise or
Yes.
some other type of business.
We do everything based on appraisal and quality of the space.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
We have a motion second, and all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Ms. Mayfield opposes. I think this is, now the next one is item 40. Which is property transactions, Monroe Road, multi-use pass property, and so we have that before us. I think Ms. Mayfield asked what the counter offer was?
Yes, because what we have noted on here, Mayor, is that the city's response to the property owner's concerns is the property owner's concerned about the amount of the compensation offered. The city's response to that is, of course, that they can obtain their own appraisal or provide supporting documentation to justify the counteroffer. But what's not listed is any information of what, or maybe I missed it when I was reading through. Maria and I was going through this earlier, and I identified that there was some information that wasn't showing for me on the iPad. But what is that counteroffer, since that's what we have noted?
Is that the item that's on the 140?
Yes, ma'am. And to Ms. Mayfield's point, it didn't specify in the request for action the amount of the counteroffer, and it is an ongoing negotiation, but the property owner's counter offer is currently $147,000, sorry.
Of which, for me, that follow-up on that also, which I was going to ask on one of the others, but thankfully they settled on that, is even though this is Sam's Mart, a business, want to ensure that the amount of easement that we are looking to have access to is not going to create a hindrance based on the fact that we just had a property reevaluation, and that new rate is the rate for the next 4 years, not 1 year. So are we identifying an amount that is fair and equitable?
Yes, ma'am. We do a external appraisal for the properties, and then we also have an external review of the appraisal. So it's not based on tax, it's based on market.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to piggyback off of Councilmember Mayfield, did we allow time for this property owner to submit that appraisal?
Yes, ma'am. And before it ever comes to you as a condemnation, there's a back and forth process for a long time. Sometimes they become non-responsive. Some cases even, they'd rather us condemn it because of different things. Or we're still in the works. And this, by no means, when you approve a condemnation, it doesn't mean that we're going to move forward to condemnation. We still go ongoing negotiations with the property owner, but it may lead to a condemnation.
So we're still in the negotiation process with this property owner?
Correct.
So would it be appropriate to, and the reason my ears perked up on this one, because I hear from residents in District 4. We do hear from residents with, challenging the condemnation offer. So would it be more appropriate for us to wait for that process? Is there a reason that we need to do this?
Right. So we need to go ahead and start getting temporary easements and move forward with projects. If we would hold, that would create delay in projects. Some of them we have some room, but usually when we bring them forward to you, we're already at that point where if we don't, because like for this one, the next time to come forward before you would be February 12th, and then there's a whole process after that. So,
It may be helpful if the city attorney outlines for us the actual process of how it works. And so we can say step one is identifying that there's land needed for the project, and then we can go all the way through the steps that it goes to whether or not it's settled or condemnation. So, Mr. Baker, if I know that you do reports to us, maybe the next one could be like a chart that shows us how the condemnation process works, and everybody would be able to understand how it goes.
That's a good idea. And what our policy is as far as the number, are we accepting the highest and best, or are we ensuring that our residents are receiving fair market value?
And I
Okay,
think
thank
that
you.
part of it is also, to make sure that we're using people to do the appraisals correctly and get that list, things out there like that, so that we can be sure that we're doing exactly what Ms. Johnson said.
yes, ma'am. And if I may, part of the fair piece you mentioned, Ms. Johnson, is that we do get external appraisals and reviews that take into consideration impact to the property. And then we also have a third party review the appraisals. So it's double external. But also, if you want more information while you're waiting on the further detail from the attorney's office, there's reference under your agenda item 54 and 55 that kind of outlines the process for you as well.
Well, if the appraised value, and we're offering them $34,375, and they're countering with, did you say over 100,000?
So ma'am, this one is 95,000 and their counter is 147,000.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone opposed? All right, Ms. Mayfield opposes.
23, ma'am.
What now? What did you say?
Ms. Johnson had pulled 23 for a separate vote as
I
well.
understand, I have that. But I also have another issue here. You know that we have both the Jewish and the Palestinian people coming tonight. There's been a little bit of information over the internet and what's going on. Right now, we have a reasonable opportunity to provide everyone that's a speaker on the list to speak if we go down now. If we don't go down now, it is likely to be a little bit more issues that might be raised as a result. So I understand that we still have some things to do, but we're going to have additional time at the dais. So I would like to ask the council to consider going down and opening our public meeting to have the public forum in a way that I believe would serve us all best. Would that be
do it.
exceptional?
Yeah.
Would you do that? Thank you very much. So right now, we'll have and when we go down, we'll have the public forum. We have 15 speakers. We also have 4 closed session items.
Betty, remember?
We did vote on the item 40. The last item we voted on.
There's
But we
one,
will come
there's
back.
one
We
pending
will come back
consent, number
onto the
23.
remaining items that we have pulled, yes. But we have, I'm just saying, it would do us well if we got down and let the public forum take place. Okay? Let's get 6 people. January 8th City Council, Charlotte City Council meeting to order. We'll begin with introductions. We'll start with our city clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk.
Good evening, James Mitchell at large.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Vi Lyles, Mayor.
Dante Anderson, Mayor Pro Tem, District 1.
Malcolm Grimm, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
Charles Picard, District 6.
Victoria Watlington, at large.
All right. With those introductions, we begin our meeting with an invocation, which is followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. It is something that we do to solemnize what we're doing up here at the dais, and so feel free to participate or not to participate based upon your own values. And so I'm going to ask Mayor some words of wisdom tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. I just wanted to lift up and celebrate that we're in the season of Epiphany as we move out of the season of Christmas and Advent, and it's the season that's the manifestation of Jesus Christ. And as we celebrate that throughout the entire month of January, I hope all of us take moments to reflect on how we are as a community and how we can continue to work together to improve lives of every single citizen that lives in the city of Charlotte. Thank you.
All right, if you would choose to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. The first item on our agenda is our public forum, and on behalf of the entire City Council, I ask that all speakers and audience members be civil and courteous in the use of language. We hope that we do not see insults, profanity, gestures, or inappropriate behavior, nor comments, questions, or jeers will be tolerated in our chamber. And I think that we will go ahead and we will have our 15 speakers that we have signed up. And where's my list again? There we go. And we're going to start with David Scott. Mr. Scott, is he here? If not, Ms. Bryant. Ms. Bryant, please come down. And following Ms. Bryant, Mr. Grabowski. Mr. Grabowski, are you here?
I apologize, I thought it was off.
All right, and then followed by, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. We're always glad to see you.
Glad
you
to
have
see
2
y'all,
minutes
too.
to speak tonight.
Oh, we got 2. Okay. Well, before my suicide signs went up in March of 2019, the city's City Green parking deck, according to the Washington Post, had 6 suicides in 4 years in their parking deck. After my suicide prevention signs were installed, we were headed towards 2 years with no incidents when a 16-year-old female drove up to the parking deck, got out of her car, took off her shoes, her glasses, laid down her cell phone, and jumped. My signs weren't big enough. So I went back to the parking deck, and JT, the manager, walked me over to where she jumped, and my legs were shaking. And I told them, we need to make these signs bigger, and we need to make them more visible. I'm proud to say that since my son, she died December 23rd of 2020. Since my signs have become more visible and bigger, we have had no suicides in the Center City parking deck in over 3 years. That's the work of my signs. See, I can't be there, and I know what that pain feels like firsthand, that terrible pain that outweighs the love of our family, the love of our friends. But if someone can come along and say, let us know you're not alone, it can make a big difference. So I can't be there to save that in the top of those parking decks. But what I can do is put something up there that lets someone know. And as one of the city council members said in an interview with Channel 36, while not a complete solution, these small gestures, we can let you know we can see you, we care, and your life has value. My suicide signs may seem like a small gesture of love, but they're making a big impact. I have 12 parking decks in Charlotte, including Mecklenburg County. And that came about after someone almost died by suicide in that parking deck. So I'm asking City Council for y'all to come up with an ordinance to make my suicide prevention signs, put them in all city-wide parking decks in Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bryant. We will take that under consideration. Our next speaker is Noah Goldman. Mr. Goldman? I asked for Mr. Grabowski. Is Mr. Grabowski in the room? I called his name earlier and did not get a response. So we'll continue with Mr. Goldman. Mr. Goldman, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Noah Goldman, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I'm here tonight as a member of the Charlotte Jewish community with close family ties in Israel. I stand before you today to condemn hatred of anybody. Here in Charlotte, every single resident deserves to feel safe and protected. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or any other hatred is intolerable. At this time, there are those who seek to utilize the Israel-Hamas war to justify their prejudices and act on them. That is unacceptable. As we hope and pray for all innocent life to be protected, we must also work to keep each other safe here in Charlotte. Having gone to East Meck High School and Queens University of Charlotte, I know how diverse and amazing this city is. As a Jewish American, I have been given opportunities that my ancestors just 100 years ago would not have been able to imagine. It is in the city's diversity that we should work to create cross-cultural dialogue and engagement, not for the sake of agreement, but for the sake of understanding. I encourage everyone to reach out to those who are not like them, to engage in critical dialogue. Some of my most meaningful experiences are with those who have a different background, ethnicity, religion, and worldview than that of my own. While our impact overseas is limited, our impact in this community is great. I have the great privilege of working at the Jewish Federation, and in my job, I see every day that Federation's priorities are aligned with that of City Council's in our shared desire to build and create a strong and vibrant community here in Charlotte. It is incumbent upon all of us to create an environment that allows all citizens to advocate for their views with respect and without intimidation. Let us work to make the city a safe and incredible place for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Our next speaker is Sharon Handelsman.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Handelsman. I was scheduled to speak to you all a month ago. However, I did not get to due to the disruptions from a number of the attendees that evening. My comments that day were going to be focused on sharing the ongoing shock and horror I have over the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th. Also, the constant fear that I live with for the 100 family members I have living in Israel, as well as the profound sadness I have for the loss of both Israeli and Gazan life since October 7th. However, after listening to the number of speakers recounting tragedies in Gaza, which were then followed by the scoffs, chants, and jeers leveled at the one speaker who actually tried to speak on behalf of the Charlotte Jewish community that evening, I decided to change my comments. Firstly, I think it's important for everyone in this room, I know we all recognize that City Council resolutions on international affairs will not realistically impact foreign policy making. However, there is a direct impact on our local community here in Charlotte when such resolutions are introduced in a negative manner that is accompanied by hate speech and vitriol towards any repeating chants of ceasefire and from the river to the sea, which implies the destruction of the Jews living in Israel.
That's really enough. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Before we begin, let me tell you this. If you cannot interrupt the speaker, if you are going to choose to continue to do this, I will have an officer escort you out of the building. Enough. All right. Okay, so let me just say this, that I've asked, you have interrupted the speaker. If you are violating the rules that we have, you are violating General Statute GS 143-318-17, and you are subject to being escorted out of the meeting chamber and charged with a misdemeanor if you do not cease talking over people. So with that, I would ask you to please stop. and not interrupt. You will have an opportunity to have from everyone if you don't interrupt. But if this continues, you will be escorted from the building. Thank you. All right. Please continue, Ms. Handelsman.
Sure. These are efforts to try to intimidate and silence those who do hold a different view. These aggressive actions make community members feel unsafe and will not lead to understanding and civil discourse in our community. If myself and others like me are given a chance to speak, you might hear that many in the Jewish community would embrace a ceasefire. I, for one, certainly do not want my family members to continue to be subjected to daily rocket fire and to see my young nieces and nephews called up to the reserves. However, I do not see how anyone can expect to talk about a ceasefire that does not start with unconditional release of hostages and disarmament of Hamas. I would ask the following of City Council and the community.
Your time is up. Thank you. You can give the clerk your remaining remarks to be included in the record.
Okay.
The next speaker is Eric Willoughby.
So pause it for, just give them an additional 2 minutes for every time there's an outburst. Because they'll teach you from outbursts.
Mr. Willoughby, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Eric Willoughby. I'm 17 years old and a senior in high school. Some of you may recognize me from last month's rather hectic meeting. Today, I'd like to get a few things straight. I have worked in today's polarized political environment for about 3 years now. Not once in all that time have I ever been characterized as a public enemy due to my Jewish heritage. I never thought that in the 21st century, Jews, or any group of people for that matter, would have to live in fear due to an extremist ideology that attempts to weaponize the valid emotions and collective grief of the Palestinian people and use it against Jews, who, may I add, are also grieving our brothers and sisters who are injured, dead, or still held hostage by Hamas. My friends, I fear we may have forgotten an incredibly basic principle: the recognition of each other's humanity. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell y'all that I'm not guilty of being inflammatory or hot-headed at times, but I have never characterized anyone who is not a Hamas terrorist of being an enemy of the Jewish people. I have never come to this council chamber and proclaimed so publicly that those who disagree with me are enemies, because they are not. As a matter of fact, I believe that those who disagree with me can be the greatest source of friendship. For instance, I have many good friends who just happen to be Republicans. Do I disagree with them? As a proud, lifelong Democrat, absolutely. Do I think they are any worthy of being shown basic decency due to our disagreements? Absolutely not. I refuse to look at any of my Arab brothers and sisters and tell them they are any less deserving of the basic respect that I expect of them, because we are equal. At the end of the day, we are all Americans. And we have a responsibility to future generations to keep this train on the tracks and not derail it in the face of disagreement. My friends, there is no virtue in absolutism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Samuel Zimmerman. Please, 2 minutes, Doctor.
I'm Sam Zimmerman, and I have lived in Charlotte for 42 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Recently, you have heard heavily biased speeches about the Israeli-Hamas conflict. I feel that all sides of that conflict should be presented in this very public forum. I'm going to focus on 3 words. The first word is Hamas, which is a dictatorial Arab terrorist group in Gaza.
I'm sorry.
That is not true. It is a resistance struggle.
I'm sorry, ma'am. You are going to be asked to leave the chamber.
You can laugh.
We
There's
can.
genocide going on in your name.
She's got to go. Mayor, she's got to go.
I'm sorry, ma'am. You are no longer allowed to be in
I
our.
don't want to hear this anymore, and
That's
I hope
okay. Then you want to be escorted out. Thank you, or you can take a leave on your own.
Right, I'm saying, what are y'all doing? Y'all just waiting?
Please. Thank you.
No, please.
Time to go.
And please. please, I hope that you
All right,
also-
Time to go.
ma'am, you must.
Bye-bye.
Zionism is a racist
Stop.
ideology. There is not equality in that.
I agree with her.
I understand that you agree with her, but this is not the time. He has the floor, and if you would like to stay in the space, this will be the last time before you will be asked to be escorted out. Thank you.
Shame.
Thank you.
I will focus on three words, and the first word is Hamas, which is a dictatorial Arab terrorist group in Gaza. As declared in its founding charter, Hamas is dedicated to the destruction of Israel and killing of Jews. On October 7, 2023, over 3,000 Hamas militants suddenly invaded Israel and shot, burned, raped, mutilated, and even beheaded Israeli citizens, resulting in over 1,200 deaths. In addition, 280 hostages were dragged back into Gaza. Israel immediately went to war to prevent any such catastrophe in the future. The second word is ceasefire. I hope you know that a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was already in existence at the very time of the recent Hamas invasion. Hamas has publicly stated its goal is to invade and kill Israelis again as soon as they can. In light of these realities, another ceasefire is irrational at this time. And the third word is genocide. It means actions taken to eliminate an ethnic or religious group of people. In the past 50 years, the Palestinian population has grown from 2 million to 5 million. That's not what genocide looks like. It's very sad to see that thousands of civilians in Gaza have died during the current war. But the main reasons are, number one, Hamas intentionally started the war, and two, Hamas is waging the war from schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, and even mosques. Israel's goal is to abolish Hamas. It's not genocide against Palestinians.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to have any of the remaining part of your remarks, you can provide it to the clerk. Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Lana Shinika. Thank you, please.
I just turned it off.
You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lana Sheikha, and I stand before you today with a plea for our city to promote peace with regard to the horrific events unfolding in Israel and Palestine. As an American with Kurdish roots, the world's largest stateless nation, I am in a unique position to empathize with both sides as I understand the vulnerabilities not having a home to call your own puts not just a person, but an entire population. Kurds were never granted a land to call their own, leaving us vulnerable in the lands we do inhabit. As Kurds in Iraq, my parents survived an environment where they were constantly subject to state-sponsored trauma, torture, and death just for being Kurdish, similar to what Jewish people were subject to in Europe, which ultimately culminated in the devastating events that led to the Holocaust. Kurds and Palestinians also share similarities when it comes to inequality, displacement, and mass atrocities, starting from the Nakba in 1948 all the way to what we see unfolding today. The Gaza Strip is just 25 miles long, which is about the distance from Huntersville to Pineville. Since the start of the besiegement, Israel's military has dropped over 29,000 bombs in this area inhabited by 2.3 million people, killing 22,000. Let's not forget these weapons are being financed by American taxpayer dollars. That is money that will not be used to educate our youth, house the unhoused, or get vulnerable North Carolinians the health care they need to live. It is not radical to want my hard-earned tax dollars to help my fellow American citizen instead of slaughtering innocent children halfway around the world. As a human being, I implore all of us to acknowledge the human rights of all individuals affected by this conflict and to demand an immediate ceasefire. Let us draw inspiration from the teachings of a famous Palestinian Jew I'm sure you've heard of, Jesus Christ, who said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Coco Love. Ms. Love. Our next speaker is Hania Karam. The next speaker is Rhonda Eldenary. Rini. Our next speaker is Dija Jamal. Gregory Koskunowski. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's not coming down. All right. Please come down, Mr. Kanowski. And I apologize for not being able to say your name correctly.
She's the person before,
I'm sorry.
one before
That's
you
Dia.
called.
Is this
12.
item number 12? Will you come down at the podium, and then we'll have Mr. Kanowski speak first, and then you'll be able to speak following him. Yes, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I am Gregory Kosanovsky. I come here as a human being and as a son of 2 Holocaust survivors. What we witnessed last October 7th was literally a day out of Holocaust. It was a day out of Holocaust in a typical number of Jews killed during the Holocaust in a single day. And it was a day out of Holocaust in the manner in which they were killed. Children were knifed in front of their parents. Parents were knifed to death in front of their children. An infant was placed in an oven, a living infant was placed in an oven and baked. Enormous number of women were raped, killed, people of all ages were killed, taken hostage. We know most of this not because of the investigations that followed, but because the murderers who perpetrated it live streamed it using their GoPros. People were watching the slashing of infants, the rape of women live on the feed on the internet. This was Holocaust except streamed live. It was Holocaust streamed live by an organization which stated that it wants to kill not only all Jews of Israel, but all Jews around the world. An organization that following day said that it will do it again and again in far greater numbers. Israel went into Gaza to eliminate this horrific genocidal band. They are doing it as humanely as physically possible. About half of all people who have been killed in Gaza were actual terrorists. This is unheard of in terms of accurate fight in a similar situation.
Thank you very much. Your time is up, so we will have, if you have written remarks, please provide them to the clerk.
Against Zionism, by
All
the way,
right,
not
our
Jews.
next speaker,
It's taken 3
Mr.
months.
Jamauer,
Yeah.
you have 2 minutes.
It's taken 3 months now, 30,000 murdered by Israel. Take a look at our resolution in your email. Your party has claimed unwavering support for Israel throughout the genocide currently taking place as we speak against the innocent Palestinians. Our government is complicit. These are our tax dollars which are being used to fund murder, to fund genocide. Why do we as Americans pay for Israel, sending billions from our tax dollars to Israeli military overnight for a genocide on children? Anti-Semitism is thrown around carelessly. I'm a Semite, by the way, an Arab born in Palestine. Anti-Semitism is being hostile or prejudiced against both Jews, Arab, and not being critical of the racist apartheid state of Israel, who continues their blatant and humanitarian war crimes. Don't shut down the conversation by labeling criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. When those 40 Israeli children are raping accusations, the world went wild, and rightfully so. But it was debunked days later by both the Israeli and American, meaning it was not true. Now, over 12,000 Palestinian children murdered in 3 months. Where's the same energy? Is it not the same because they are Palestinian babies? Islamophobia is serious and continues to affect us here in the West. Our senator calling us terrorist supporters just because that just shows that you guys. So that just shows to you guys that we don't matter to you. What about us, the Palestinians and Muslims? Every day we are being called terrorists, or go back to your home. You're required to protect all your citizens. A Jewish man threatening to hunt down Palestinians. Here in the States, a 6-year-old Palestinian child got stabbed to death. 3 students got shot for being Arab. The teacher who threatened to behead a student just because he was Muslim, he didn't like the Israeli flag. Where's our protection? Where? So let us be very cautious with the words that we speak, because they are not just words, but meant to eradicate and push hate. The same governments that would label Nelson Mandela and MLK as terrorists are the same governments labeling Palestinians as terrorists or fighting for their rights. I have only one question. Why? Could it be because the Israeli AIPAC group lobbied the Democratic Party countless billions over the years? So we hear you and understand that it is not our voices that are enough for you to listen, but it is money. You only give us your undivided attention when you are running in elections and ignore us when you are in a place of power. We will not stop, go away, or shut up. We will be relentless spreading the truth, and you will hear us, and we will only get louder. water. What you do today will be the history of tomorrow. If you still support Israel's approach, you should be ashamed. I can't imagine how you could explain this to your children down the line. Either you're on the side of humanity or on the side of greed. As elections happen this year, we'll remember your hypocrisy and we will replace you.
Stop. Mr. Hammer, thank you. All right, thank you. The next speaker is Lena Barr. Lena Barr. Lena Barr is our next speaker. If Lena Barr is not available, Linda Barkowty. That is our last speaker, so I'm going to go back and ask, is Mr. Grabowski here? Mr. Scott? Is Mr. Scott here? Thank you. I think then that ends our speakers, our public forum for this evening.
One on the wait list.
I'm sorry.
You had one on the wait list who's here.
Oh, Mr. Titus Elder Reeves. Mr. Reeves, are you here? I am. Oh, thank you so much. Come down. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Hope all of you are doing well this evening. And I want to start on a positive note. I want to congratulate all of you on your return to represent your constituents here in Mecklenburg County. And I'm going to try to get through this quick. And I want to end on a positive note. So if my 2 minutes is up, allow me to give you 4 solutions rather than the problems that I come here for. So I am a 42-year-old that has had many trials and tribulations, and with that being said, I have been triumphant as well. I am a college graduate. I graduated with honors. Pat Cannon was actually he spoke at my commencement, and I remember every last bit of it. I'm going to give a shout out to Pat Cannon for that, because he has also shown that he is resilient and made it through many trials and tribulations. But I have experienced some disheartening things here, hopefully that I can grab your heart. And I did not write this down because I am speaking from the heart. I have dealt with some police misconduct. I have not had any troubles with the police department in almost 20 years, so this is very foreign to me. So it prompted me to go into the Constitution, and I have an epistille that I have sealed everything that belongs to me from the government, the state and local government, which is supposed to protect me from, some Jim Crow, what laws that some may seem Jim Crow to some, and that the police seem to not understand. I have been arrested 8 times and thrown in jail, basically held hostage under the most abused charge in North Carolina, obstruct and delay, or RDO. And with no law attached to it. This is what I consider a hostage situation and something. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reeves, I'm going to ask you, I know that you say that you're speaking from the heart, but do you have the ability to write down what you have a concern about, or should we have someone contact you? We can have someone call you or even talk to you this evening about your concerns.
Okay, about my concerns. Okay, yes, talk to me about this evening.
Mr. Heath is going to listen to your remarks and your concerns here. If you would meet with him over here.
And Mr. Heath is who?
Right here. He's going to raise his hand.
Okay, and his position in government is?
He is an assistant city manager with the responsibility to help all of us get better.
To help all of you get better. Okay, and I will say this. I want to end on a positive note.
It's time to stop. It's time to stop. Step down.
Okay, step down, stay off of your phone.
Please, let me try this, okay? Let him find Sean so that we can go ahead and get this done. Okay, that is the end of our public forum for this evening. So, with that, we'll now begin. I want to do one other thing. Before we begin,
Okay.
Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to honor Ed Crutchfield. who passed away last week at the age of 82. Ed was a pillar of the Charlotte banking sector and a key figure in shaping our city's growth and success. He was the CEO of First Union, now part of Wells Fargo. He helped turn Charlotte into a major banking center and helped our city grow, especially in the southern part of Uptown, what we would call South Tryon. He was a true champion for Charlotte, big supporter of the arts, the symphony. He'd probably be grateful for the kind of things that we're doing with culture now. He played a significant role in strengthening JCSU when there was a time thought that it would not be successful. We're grateful for his contributions and just want to acknowledge that he will be missed. So with that, we will now go to our public hearing. We have to finish our consent agenda. So the next consent agenda was item, I believe, Ms. Johnson, was it 48?
23.
23, sorry, I wrote down 48. All right, Ms. Johnson,
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to pull 23 from the consent agenda because I received an email from a very engaged and informed reporter who's in the room, Joe Bruno, and he asked a question about this contract. So this contract is for airport marking removal and repainting. In 2021, council voted on the contract, and it was a 5-5 vote because it's item number 23.
Okay.
And we approved Pride, I think it was Pride Industries, I think, is who we contracted with. And one of the subsidiaries or a sister company of the company that we were contracting with had a contract with prison labor. So as a principal, it was me, Ajmira, Newton, Watlington, and Winston voted against it. And our former mayor pro tem was really engaged and lobbied against us taking a stance and really looking at policies on not to support industries that were supporting or profiting from prison labor. So the question by Joe Bruno today is this new company, Highlight, do they contract with the prisons for free labor, essentially? And the answer is no. So the answer is no, and I know that the email that you received from Hannah Gentry was that Highlight would subcontract with the company that used prison labor, but that has since changed. They're going to be working with PPG, and PPG does not utilize prison labor. So I just wanted to put that on the record, that Highlight does not use prison labor, nor does the company they're subcontracting with as of today. Thank you.
do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Anyone opposed? All right, so that's item 23. So now I think we're at item 40. Did we do 48?
No.
All right, let's go to item 48, which is a property transaction for Regional Solids Conveyance, Phase 1A, Parcel 11. Who asked for this to be a separate vote? Anyone asked for it to be a separate vote? I can't recall. I just wrote it down as 48. All right, so do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And we have a motion, do we have a second? All right, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of item 48, please raise your hands. All right, anyone opposed? Ms. Mayfield is in opposition. Okay, I think that covers our consent agenda items, and now we will go to our public hearing. And the next item on our public hearing, we have a public hearing and a decision on amendment to the ordinance that adopted the City of Charlotte Unified Development Ordinance. We're now going to open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that wishes to speak?
No, ma'am.
We have no speakers. We have a motion to approve and a second.
Move to close the public hearing and adopt.
To close the public hearing. Move to close the public hearing and adopt the item. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. That item passes. The next item is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Normally, I give you a 30-day report, but outside of the next business meeting is outside of that 30-day window. As you do know, we talked a little bit about the upcoming annual strategy meeting at the Budget and Intergovernmental Committee today. But what I wanted to do is just inform you, council, tonight that we're expecting a strong weather event tomorrow. Thunderstorms, several inches of rain, strong winds, and we'll likely see some downed trees and power outages. We have started today sending out information to you because you do a very good job of pushing that information out to the residents, and we'll continue to do that. As you know, the city never stops, so we have already activated the Emergency Operations Center. The city departments such as Stormwater Services, CDOT, Landscape Management have been taking a proactive stance as it deals with the potential effects of the storm, cleaning catch basins, making sure that we fueled all of our equipment. So Team Charlotte, there's a lot of folks that live for making sure that we are prepared during these weather events. What I would say is that information on how to prepare for the storm has been posted on the city's website, and we encourage people to monitor the Emergency Management's Twitter and Instagram for updates. And again, we will continue to push information out to the mayor and the council so that you can continue to push information out to the residents. And so that's just the update in terms of being prepared for the weather event.
Any questions for the manager? Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. The next item is item number 7. Is there a motion to adopt a budget ordinance appropriating $76,937.28 in private development funds from Polymer Center of Excellence for the I-85 North Bridge project to the General Capital Projects Fund?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the item, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? No one opposed. Item 8, is there a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a service agreement for solar energy generation with Duke Energy Corporation, Cypress Creek Renewables, South Davidson Solar, and their respective subsidiaries and affiliates for the city's participation in the Duke Energy's Green Source Advantage Bridge program for a term of 20 years, and authorize the manager to amend the agreement. I know that it was in committee earlier today, so do I have a motion? Ms. Molina, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Ajmira, second. Any discussion? Ms. Ajmira.
Mayor, there's also a speaker.
And we will have a speaker. Thank you. Oh, Meg. Hello, Meg. Sorry.
I thought I saw her.
When did you sneak in this chamber? I didn't see you, sorry. All right, Meg, you want to go ahead and talk to us about this?
It's good to see you all this evening, City Council members and Mayor Lyles. My name is Meg Fensel, and I'm speaking on behalf of Sustain Charlotte. And tonight I'm here asking you to be champions of transitioning Charlotte to a clean energy future for the health of our residents and the economic resilience of our region by approving the city's entry into Duke Energy's Green Source Advantage Bridge program to develop the South Davidson Solar Project. Alongside others, to first adopt a clean energy resolution, followed by the adoption of the Strategic Energy Action Plan, or CAP. As we continue to advocate for investment in sustainable transportation choices and a more walkable city in which we don't need to be overly reliant on vehicles for our daily trips, we also support investments that support a healthy and economically vibrant built environment. Council adoption of the CAP and its subsequent implementation by dedicated city staff across departments has already elevated Charlotte's position as a national leader in piloting, investing in, and leveraging partnerships to advance the use of renewable energy and reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. With continued investment in clean, renewable energy, we can move away from burning fossil fuels and prevent the estimated 350,000 premature deaths in the U.S. each year that are caused or worsened or related to combustion related to air pollution. Our most vulnerable residents, children, the elderly, low-income residents, and communities of color are disproportionately impacted by air pollution and are most vulnerable to health and economic impacts of the climate crisis. So I'm asking you to please support this project and additional investments to put Charlotte on track to meet the CAP 2030 zero carbon buildings goal. Thank you for your commitment to sustainability.
Thank you, Meg. Now we'll ask Ms. Ajmira has asked to be recognized.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a great start to 2024. This will be the single biggest action that will be taken by the City Council in meeting our CEP goals. So CEP is our Strategic Energy Action Plan that was approved unanimously by this council. And this gets us within 19% of meeting our CEP building goals. So this is huge. This is, if I were to quantify this, we are talking about 24,000 vehicles, equivalent to taking 24,000 cars off the road. So when we talk about climate pollution, when I talk about the climate change, it's really just the climate pollution, or carbon pollution, I should say. And that has a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. And when we talk about equity, everything that we do to meet our CEP goals addresses the equity issue. So I'm very passionate about this, and I hope all of my colleagues will support this. Let this be another bold step that we take in addressing the climate crisis that our nation faces, or the world faces. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? So we have a motion on the floor for authorizing the manager to execute the service agreement and amend the agreement consistent with the purpose for which it's approved. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? Mr. Bakari is in opposition. That motion passes. The next item is 9. Is there a motion to authorize the manager to accept a lead-based paint hazard reduction grant in the amount of $3,573,037 from the Department of HUD, and to adopt a budget ordinance to adopt a budget ordinance appropriating that amount to the Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes Neighborhood Development Grants Fund for the program's activities? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? No one is in opposition. The next item is item 10, to approve a 10-year lease with, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this, but it's FIVF 3 NC1 LLC for office and warehouse space located at 22 Executive Street for use by Charlotte Water, authorizing the manager to execute documents necessary for the transaction and to seek approval from the Local Government Commission for the lease. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, everyone in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? Ms. Mayfield is in opposition. The next item is an extension of option and ground lease for affordable housing. Item 11, adopt a resolution approving an extension to the option for ground lease of city-owned property on Providence Road West and Valentine Parkway with SCSE Communities LLC through June 30th, 2024, with an option to further extend up to 6 additional months as needed and extend the ground lease and affordability period to 75 years. Authorize the manager to execute the documents necessary. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Is anyone in opposition? No one is in opposition. The next item is item 12. Is there a motion to adopt a resolution approving an option to a ground lease agreement and a 99-year ground lease of 1.73 acres of city-owned property located at 76 University City Boulevard with Merit HC LLC, and authorize the manager or his designee to negotiate and execute the documents necessary? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously. And now we have closed session. Mr. Baker, would you please read our motion to go into closed session?
Correct. The motion to go into closed session, I'm sorry I wasn't quite prepared. Thank you, council member.
We didn't hear him. Are we going upstairs or in the back room? Upstairs. We're going to go in the room behind the chamber, not back upstairs, so Do we have,
We need a motion to go into closed session for a attorney-client communication pursuant to 143-318-11A3. Also, a motion to go into closed session to discuss economic development matters, including incentives that may be offered by the city pursuant to 143-318-11A4. And also to observe a video that's been ordered released by the court pursuant to GS 143-318-11A10.
So moved.
thank you very much. If we can get back into the room, then we can start those. We have, I think, 4 items.
Yeah, we needed a second and a vote on that.
I'm sorry, do we have to vote on that? Yes, we do.
We do.
Do we have a motion to go into closed session in a second? All in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Hearing no one opposed, then let's go back.
I do.
Go into closed session. 4 items.